date is March 22nd, 2018. The time is 6:30 p.m. David Champy II.
Present.
Geary Ciccarone.
Here.
Ed Comeau.
Here.
Stephen Bailey.
Absent.
Ex officio Rick Charette.
Absent.
Dianne Smith.
Present.
Tim Straz.
Here.
So we have one regular member that's absent this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We don't have any alternates. So,
Could I get a list of the members?
yes, absolutely. You have an updated list of the members? I think we're going to be updating one soon. Who we have on the board now, correct?
Yeah, I waited purposely for the vote.
Thank you. Any public comments? So we're going to discuss the nomination and election of the planning board chairman and vice chairman. So if we have any nominations of chairman? Diane?
I move that David Champy be the chair.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any other nominees? Motion carries. Thank you. And vice chair? We have a nomination for vice chair.
Would you like it?
Then I would nominate Geary Ciccarone, vice chair.
I second that.
All right, any discussion? The nominees?
Well, I've been away a while, you know that,
You have?
a year. But I'm not up to speed on any of this.
I think you add value input.
Well, I've done 3 stints as chairman, I guess I could do vice chairman. I'll do vice chair, yeah, unless I drop dead or sell my home. And it's not in the market.
Thank you, Gary. Gary Ciccarone, we got a nomination and a second. And discussion, motion carries.
I'll vote.
Yeah, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, good. And we're going to call a vote for chair as well. I apologize. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. And we have our friend Dick Wilson here today. How are you today?
Good.
We look forward to hearing what you have to present to us. I heard that you visited Wakefield.
Did you get an email from Wakefield?
I did.
Oh, good. They said they would send me one, and they never did.
Yeah, they said they didn't have any issues with what you were looking into. So.
We had a great time.
Oh, that's good.
There were 2 people ahead of me, and they got both turned down. And I thought, oh, no. And then, we just had a laugh fest. This doesn't belong to them. So they had no objections.
Even the small parcel that's in Wakefield, they didn't have any issues with that?
And I think that's been on Scott's land all along. I never paid taxes on it, I never heard anything about it. And I looked at the deed, and it mentions the Brookfield-Wakefield line, which indicates that the property never did go into Wakefield, but it borders Wakefield. And that's where we're making the lot line adjustment based on, I think you have to have contiguous property to make the lot line adjustment.
I believe so.
It's about 600 feet along the Brookfield-Wakefield line that Mr. Bramer, who owns the diner, owns that lot. And I had a heck of a time getting a map. I have the snow machine trails, I have 100 acres, and I finally, with cut and paste, I put together Brookfield and Wakefield. Because the Brookfield town map and the Wakefield town map, the tax maps, are not even close to the same scale. So I did a, what do you call it? Photoshop.
Would you like to bring it forward so we can take a look at it? So Gary, to catch you up, he's looking to merge some of his property, some of the back lot, with his neighbor who abuts his property. All right, so this is Comeau Mill Pond over here.
That is owned by Benson. That is Benson's.
Lyford Road.
Yeah, I see
This
it.
is Robinson Road here.
And this is, okay.
This is sort of 100 acres. This is subject to adjustment here to make it 100 acres. So this is bigger than 100 acres. And I'm going, supposedly, my brother's a surveyor, supposedly we're going out tomorrow and locate the
You familiar with this property?
I walked it all, I've been up there, yeah, I just don't know exactly what he's trying to do here because I've been.
Gary wasn't
Okay.
here at the last
This
meeting.
is a back lot. We
That's
can't
part of it.
subdivide it because there's no
No access.
road
Road frontage.
class 6 highway or class 5 highway.
The property that he's joining it to has road frontage.
There's no existing road to this because he had no reason to build a road to my property. But his property is this lot 3 here, which includes the Miss Wakefield Diner, the daycare center, and his personal property. And the latest I understand is this Kimball Mill, he's talking to Benson about buying that section too, so then he'll have, good access to the back property. And he did no plan whatsoever, according to him, at this point, of any kind of development. He wants to leave it backwoods.
This,
Yes,
who owns it now?
I do.
You do, okay. When you say he, meaning,
And
Rammer who owns this property here.
this little one?
Yeah.
Okay, but he's a separate entity,
he's in a different town.
Right.
So, excuse me, just for clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, excuse me. He is intending to purchase this property,
Okay, I didn't realize that. I see.
and Dick is trying to find, he was at the last meeting, and I came in late to this discussion, so I'm not the most informed person here. But as I understand, you guys have an agreement that if you can make all of the regulations and everything fit, that you would like to sell him this portion of your property, contiguous with 600 feet
Right.
of frontage, or not frontage, excuse me,
Package.
common boundary.
Contiguous
Right, thank you, right.
property line.
So,
His name
Sorry.
is what again?
Kramer.
I know him.
Miss Wakefield Diner.
Yeah, I know.
You can't help but run across him if you go in there. He attacks everybody.
Yeah,
This isn't important to you, but to him, there's a snow machine trail that goes across and down. And he's a snow machine aficionado and wants to keep, he's afraid that as I sell this to somebody else, they'll lose the trail. And that's a good cut to get over towards Moose Mountain. So it would be, this is not to scale. This comes up about,
this doesn't even have the,
Kind of where is it on here? Just
Yes.
roughly.
it's gonna come from this sand pit up and across. And what we're doing with the survey, my brother's survey, if he shows up, is to go from the Brookfield post up to where the snow machine trail cuts off, and then he's got his transit, and I don't know what he uses to measure distance, but say a tape measure, and we will get the angles and so forth on that, just to be sure.
You're just gonna survey the whole property?
No, he's just gonna locate the snow machine trail,
Oh.
because that, I assume I'm gonna have a full survey. No?
Not to sell something, you know.
Not for a lot line adjustment.
Just a lot line adjustment.
Well, you'll need to have the surveyor do the lot line adjustment, but he doesn't have to survey the whole thing.
Right.
Really?
No,
Because they were talking 10 grand or more.
sure, but you don't need to do that for a lot line adjustment. An A2 survey is not required for that. I mean, that's just
I
state
like
the
you
law.
guys even better than the.
It's got nothing to do with us, it's to happens to be the law with land
Okay.
development.
So, but I would have to survey and get the acreage. You gotta know that.
The acreage that you're
Yeah, you
breaking
need
up
to
to sell.
identify-
Yeah, you need to
you need to
It's
identify.
gonna be
identify the
between
boundary for
100, maybe
your purposes.
109,
Right.
Well,
something like
For
that.
whatever you, that's between you and the buyer to
Yeah,
identify
yeah.
a parcel,
Well,
is that
you know,
not correct?
I couldn't sell them like, cut it across here, because that just breaks the bank. That's too much property and more than he wants. And 40 years ago, I was 40 years younger, and I got pulling out through there, and I was, going over the my whole 200 acres. I would wander all over the place. I've been to all this. These aren't really swamps, they're just kind of wettish areas. There's no cattails or anything like that. But I really don't have the interest to go out there. And the two brothers have suddenly got a bug in their on it and want to sell. I've been after them for 20 years to do it, and now all of a sudden it's got to be done yesterday. And I'm not quite sure what's behind that, but possibly our dates of birth. You're getting too far back.
What's Bramer want to do with it? Just preserve snowmobile trails? Is that what he's saying?
No, he wants the snow machine trails just so it won't get shut down. But he just wants nobody to build a development in the back of it.
His other concern is the amount of logging they've done.
This
abutting him.
is,
They cleared all
have you
this back
seen
here.
this? Have you been out?
I
It's
kind of walked it, but I
It's
can see it, yes.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I know who did it too.
Totally, I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, they did the whole thing back
This, I
2
don't,
years ago.
this I don't know who owns it. And this lot here, which also abuts, I don't know who owns that. But the only other abutters are New Hampshire Railroad, or State of New Hampshire, the buyer, and Benson.
And so this whole piece here borders Robinson up in here.
Robinson Road is
Yeah.
from here. This is Clark Road here, this is paved.
So Clark Road is a little point on Clark Road,
Yes.
doesn't
Yeah,
it?
this is all Clark Road here.
No, that's
That's
Robinson.
Robinson.
Excuse me, I'm sorry,
Clark.
great to hear.
This is that sharp corner.
Yeah, I know where that is. So technically, I'm just trying to get this in my head because
Nobody in the world's gonna know this has happened. It's gonna be a change
I
of
don't, it
ownership.
doesn't matter. So technically, what I'm looking at here is there is a place where if somebody did want to develop this, they
Yeah.
couldn't come in off Robinson. It wouldn't be legal because you're not going to be able
Right.
to put a state spec road off of Class 6.
Yeah.
You'd have to make all of this Class 4.
But he's not coming through here anyhow.
No, I understand that, but
This
if
is-
he's worried about development, someone could actually develop this piece.
Well,
putting it
if I
access.
lose the sale of this back 100, then I've gotta sell the whole thing all in one piece.
I get it.
And Scott was interested in it, he's still interested in it, And what we have to do is probably go from here across the brook where there's a bridge here for the snow machines, and then it goes down to the sand pit and then around here. That has to be included, so the line will probably come from 20 feet north of the snow machine trail, not following the snow machine trail, but just either one or two lines to, for my,
So you're here for
for the lot line
subdivision, right?
adjustment.
Yeah, it's a lot line adjustment.
I have.
Because
So-
they're changing this lot line to be over here now. 'Cause he's gonna be enveloping this property when he purchases it.
We ran into this with the last lot line.
I don't think so.
adjustment, that-
Good then.
We ran into this with the last lot line adjustment. You can't take one parcel, make it into two, and call it a lot line adjustment.
I was just gonna say that.
So that'd be subdivision.
It has to
Well,
be
yeah,
subdivision. It's not, you're making one parcel into two. That's not a lot line adjustment.
She's right, legally, she's 100% right. The only avenue you have to make it legal, and this is a convoluted way to go. I do this for a living too. So if you were to take this,
If he buys it,
if
then
he buys
it
it,
becomes one
if he
lot.
buys this whole thing, then becomes one lot.
If he buys that much. of it.
Well, but there's a catch-22 there. If you divide this now,
Yeah,
it's subdivision.
no.
It's not a lot line change because you can't take this property line, if this and this are not one entity, you're not doing a lot line change. This is owned once by someone else, and it's a separate piece of property, and moving this line to here then does not make a lot line change, because this will remain the border until this becomes one piece. Do you follow me? This, as two separate pieces of this will not be a lot line change legally. I think you should consult Laura. I'm almost 100% sure of that. She's 100% right. That the lot line change could come after he purchased this. But the catch-22 is that there's no line there. So how do you define where the purchase will be?
So I have to have it surveyed.
No, there's a legal conundrum here. There really is, in the sense that there has to be a structured agreement beforehand. I'm betting money on this too. I'm only telling you, I don't care. You know, I don't snowmobile either, so what I'm telling you
The
is,
snow machine is just,
this is what you're gonna run into, I believe. And she hit it right on the head.
Well, so-
It's only a lot line change if the whole piece is owned by the same person. It's not, they're two separate entities in two different towns for that matter, which is okay, but to move this line here now is not a lot line change, because this border will still be there.
but I don't see how I can sell it to him if I've got to put that kind of a,
Well, you don't necessarily have to do that.
I mean.
You need to consult an attorney. I'll tell you what you need to do. You need to set up, structure the deal. I shouldn't be giving advice, but you would go structure the deal with this person here, that, and it would all, everybody would sign, and it becomes a legal document that, whereupon, I don't see why we would not prove a lot line change, because we do it all the time. I can't ever remember us turning one down as a planning board in 15 years that I've been here doing this.
So I have to sell it first and then,
No, that's a catch-22 itself. What you do is you get a structured agreement that says, upon sale, and I'm sure the planning board can work out a contingent lot line agreement. I think that would be legal. You gotta ask Laura about this. It's complicated, the way he wants to do this. There could be a contingent lot line. In other words, if you do this according to this agreement, we will give you the lot line change. Because then we literally can legally give you a lot line change. We can't do that the way it is. Can't do it.
So,
We just did two of them now this past year. We did Ziadeh, which was very complicated against three different parties.
Yep.
And there was no agreement, so we did a lot line adjustment. He presented it to the board, followed the requirements, and it went through.
yes, but that was, if you remember, the initial proposal was to create an additional lot, and he modified that.
But he's not creating an additional lot.
No,
Lots of golf courses have lines.
You need to
we
talk
have no
to-
authority.
I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into it, but you might hit a brick wall.
So,
Brick wall.
I just did.
I don't know how.
No, you didn't hit it with me or him. We're just
I
telling
came
you.
back for approval for the lot line adjustment.
It's outside of our
Well,
jurisdiction.
I don't know that we can legally approve a lot line adjustment because this, the way it sits now, if we give you a line here, it is a subdivision. It's not a lot line. Not that we wouldn't give you that. I'm not saying that, but we're not, this is not a lot line thing here. This is a subdivision because,
I don't see how I could sell it unless it's lined off.
you can do it. You draw the paperwork, you make your lines where they have to go, and the two of you guys make an agreement, and your agreement is subject to the lot line change, which we would approve. We can't approve a lot line change that isn't a lot line change, but is a subdivision. And you gotta ask the attorney. Otherwise we're gonna make trouble for ourselves doing something that's not kosher. I don't believe it's a lot line change.
You know what you should do? Just,
Go ahead.
just for the record, explain how just a lot line adjustment. Let's say you came in here for just a lot line adjustment. Give me an example of what a lot line adjustment
Let's
for.
say the guy right here wants this chunk here.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to find right now.
Yep,
That's a lot line adjustment.
correct.
But
Why isn't it over here?
Because
I guess
you are taking,
how do you-
this line and you're moving it here.
Yeah.
this is a lot line adjustment, but you couldn't do this with two separate owners. If you wanted to do a lot line adjustment and move that lot here, then you have subdivided two lots. Now, if you owned, let's say, I did a lot line adjustment on my property. I had two lots, and I flipped the line over to make all the property with one, with the barn and the,
There's no,
What's the difference between this, except there's no barn on it?
no, that just nothing to do with the barn. My point is, if you move this line back here, you still haven't created one lot. You still have subdivision here. You gotta ask the attorney.
No, I think I think you're confusing matters. So let's say this owner right here wants to buy this, then that would simply be taking this boundary and pushing, let's say that it comes back here, you know, all right? Then that's a lot line adjustment because you're taking, yes it is, because you're taking the boundary here and making it, you're not changing the number of lots between these two lots. It will still be two lots. That's a lot line adjustment.
So if you
That's
move
what
this-
Rich Zacher did with Gudadaro.
Now, if you move this here, this still has to be there prima facie.
No, I'm talking
Because-
about this line right here. So if this line were to go away and become straight across, just hypothetically. you
Oh,
still
this
have
one,
two-
yeah, now
you
that's a
still
lot
have
line
two
adjustment.
separate lots.
That's not a
That's,
subdivision.
okay,
I agree.
okay.
I don't see any difference because there's a town line in here of pushing this lot
What-
over to here.
What she just said was if you
It's
took
the
this
same-
line,
Yep.
Exactly,
Is
Mine
exactly,
is the
but
same
it's,
thing as what you just
it's
said
a
was a
town
lot line
boundary.
adjustment.
It's a town boundary.
You're gonna have separate lots there.
have you guys done anything but talk about this to us or anybody else? Or,
gone to Wakefield.
I mean, have you consulted anybody at all professionally about the complexity of this?
What did Wakefield say?
We feel
Well, they don't care.
no problem.
We don't care either, to be honest with you. We're not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just telling you that if you put a line across here and you do not alter this, you are making two lots out of one, and that is not a lot line change. That is a subdivision.
So I've got to make the line, sell it.
No, you just make the line and the lot line contingent is we approve upon sale. This goes away and this becomes a new line on the day of the sale. At the day of the sale, this becomes a line, but at this moment, if you do that, there's two lots here because this guy's not even in the picture yet.
Yeah, that's true.
This becomes two lots.
I really think that the complication here is the town boundary, because on Brookfield's tax map, there will be, instead of one lot, there will be two lots. It doesn't, It doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm just looking at from a,
But this doesn't cross the line at all. I have no property in Wakefield,
I understand that.
and Scott has no property in
I
Brookfield.
understand that. But that's really, if
So
if
there's
we're
gonna
trying,
have to be a separate tax bill for lot 3 and lot, my lot.
whatever your new lot, whatever the lot new number is, whatever this
I
line.
don't-
B.
I don't think the town line matters, because we have other pieces of property in town right now that have the town line that goes right through the middle of their property. It doesn't give them 2 lots. They still have 1 lot. So what would happen is, we would have to have some sort of a contingency that says, once he divides this off, it automatically becomes ownership of this property, and that boundary line goes away. And it becomes
Or a legal
developed into this
opinion
law.
that says that.
You were
Wakefield's not gonna tax the Brookfield lot.
You were recalled, Laura.
And Brookfield's not gonna tax the
I've
Wakefield.
talked to her 100 times.
So you still have a line there.
Do you understand, all
So
the
we
reason
will
I've
have-
even brought this
We will
up
have an additional lot on the
is
tax
I don't
map.
want the planning
It's
board
not
to
an
do
adjustment,
something
It's a new lot, Dave.
that doesn't work for you or us. In other words, we're all sitting here with this can of worms crawling all over the table. 2 months from now, or a month from, that's all.
Objectively looking.
Well,
at
nobody's
that.
trying to stop you from doing, we don't care.
There were too many.
I mean,
people
what you're doing is a
talking.
simple thing, it's just that I see this as not a lot line change, as a subdivision, you don't want it to be that. Then you gotta go through
Be happy
subdivision.
with a subdivision, but
No,
you
it's,
can't do that.
no, you wouldn't.
It sounds like
Comeau owns property in 2 towns on
it's
one
2
lot.
different lots, but it's 2 different lots, 2 different tax bills, 2 different lots.
How, when do you wanna do all this?
Yesterday.
The only reason is I really should ask the town attorney this, or he should, one of us should, because this, there is a legal thing
The
here.
way you explain it, if you change the line from this property to add this, that's okay.
No,
But I can't.
no, that's not okay. If you draw another line here, you can't have 2 separate owners of a lot, of 2 different
I
lots.
don't know what he said. He said move the line, like in my example.
Then who owns this piece here, from this line forward?
If this
say that
line
this-
moves.
Oh, okay, so until I sell it, I can't do the lot line adjustment.
But you can make the lot line adjustment kick in at the moment of sale.
Is something else gonna come up?
No, I don't see
When I come in
anything.
with the,
No.
with the letter of approval?
No, it has to be kosher, that's all I'm telling you. I've run into this before where if everybody doesn't dot their i's and cross their t's, there becomes a legal snafu. And the town doesn't want to get into that, and you don't want to get into it. And I'm just saying, I can call the attorney, I mean, we did it with Moose Mountain, and we've been there before. I hate to consult a lawyer on this, because we gotta spend money to do it. You don't, but she would explain it, she's a land use specialist, she's still, Laura still running the show?
Yeah.
She will tell you exactly how you have to do this to make it happen easily. I'm sure it's subdivision, I bet any amount of money, not any amount, but the lottery.
I don't know.
Can we have a subdivision contingent on the fact that this is going to envelop that extra piece of property? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, we could give him a lot line change based,
With the lot line adjustment, because there is no road access here. The potential for.
you don't have to have frontage to do a lot line adjustment.
Okay.
That's not a criterion.
I'll get the line firmed up. I have 2 different maps. This is the up-to-date tax map. And I have the original survey that was done back in 74 or 75 with directions and footage all through it. And the poor guy was bending his tape around every stone wall and had to find these boundaries here, which hardly exist anymore. There's a sheet fence here that's tumbled down, and over here it's the high water mark in the mill. And the poor guy just, he had the job cut out for him when he surveyed it, but he had good closure, and it's a good survey. That's a legal survey. So if I can get this snow machine trail figured out where it goes and put a line across and sell it.
The whole thing,
Fine.
or just the piece on the edge?
He wants to sell this piece.
The green chunk,
This,
Oh, the whole green chunk.
Yeah.
green chunk.
this one. And this is probably gonna take at least an inch off of that.
You have some RSAs you can read to us?
Well, I don't wish to read it, this is 2 pages worth.
Okay.
But 674:53, land affected by municipal boundaries, seems to have quite a bit of guidance regarding this. It's on page 434. I've only read the first 2 paragraphs, but
Then you gotta digest that first.
yeah.
I don't think what you're saying is gonna be a problem, but I just gotta present it to the buyer.
I don't see it as a problem either, it's just,
But I also gonna, I'll be out surveying tomorrow with or without my brother to find out where that snow machine trail is, and that's what decides where this line goes.
let's say the fellow from the diner doesn't buy it.
Well, it's totally off the wall.
No, I understand, but the point is,
I mean, that just takes this and throws it out the window.
yeah, no, I get it. I'm not talking about, it's not our concern, it's your concern. But if he didn't buy it, for whatever reason, and we gave you this under our lot line change,
Yeah.
Subdivision.
we've given you a subdivision under the wrong circumstances, and consequently, we've done something we shouldn't be doing against our ordinances. You see where I'm coming from?
The main point that I have is I don't want a Benson to do the same thing with this lot that he did with that.
No,
That's
I agree with you.
That's why Scott is an ideal buyer. He's interested in it. He'll be out chasing ducks and frogs and stuff out in his backwoods, but he won't be putting in a new diner back off the road or a motel or anything like that. You know, this is not for development purposes at all.
Well, that's what, we're not looking at it that way anyway.
Well,
If you were gonna develop it, you'd have to go through subdivision down the road, somebody would. I'm not, that's not our, what, you're just for a lot line change, that's all.
I'm looking for the easiest way out of 100 acres that I'm just not
I get it.
benefiting from.
But you see what I just stated about, if he were not to buy it, things fall through. Now we've given you a subdivision.
It's also been worrying me because I thought I was in for a $10,000 survey, and I'm not gonna do that if he's gonna back out at the last minute. I have no deposit, no nothing right now. So I can go back tomorrow and tell him what I've learned now.
What a surveyor would have to do is this line. That's
what I
it.
thought. I didn't see 10 grand in that.
No, just that line. He doesn't have to do all the,
Well, he was talking about, looking up the archival history of New Hampshire and going through title search and all that sort of stuff. I didn't, it's been surveyed here.
he'll do what a GPS off of the nearest property boundary. And
Well, I asked him about that and they can't, because there's no place open enough for their satellites.
Yeah, right. That is a problem.
It's gonna be 100-foot clearance around any satellite.
When you're talking about surveying the lot, what's the town gonna record to show the new line lot, the new lot, the new boundary?
Well, they have to do that line.
It's
You
gonna
need
need
to do more than that.
It's gonna need a map and a plat.
Have to be certified.
Well, they'll take this,
Right.
they'll take this, because they'll take all this that exists, and they'll certify the new line
Right.
with the existing map.
When you're gonna report to the county.
They're gonna have to have a plat.
Yes.
He's gonna have to.
For a lot line change?
Yeah, we had to do that.
Yeah.
Three of them.
We all have that. It's in here as.
But we would accept the existing contours as long as this licensed surveyor.
He doesn't have that. He doesn't have a survey of his plot.
Yeah.
It's too old, so he doesn't have anything.
No, I understand, but we have a map.
Yeah, we can't send that to the county.
Well, not this map, but,
What map do we have?
what do you, I mean, you have a town map in there of this?
It's not as good as that. The photo, no, it's the same as that.
This is the map out of the book.
And that's a copy of the map out of the
They
book?
did have a photo, an airplane
Yeah.
photography, but it didn't show you any boundaries.
So Rich, you suggesting that the new boundary, the new property needs to have
I
boundaries?
think your rules of procedure say both parcels have to be surveyed. think that's what your rules say, that's what we've been doing for the past 10 years.
Okay, I wanted to show you that.
Hence the other argument with that big plot plan,
Right,
right,
right, I remember that.
all on the regs.
Right, and all that
You're
report.
talking about to get a lot line change, you have to do that. Not to sell, you don't have.
Well, just, and your point was correct. You get this lot line adjustment, but you don't report the deed, when you sell it, and then you reference that lot line. You report that at the same time.
Well, you want to do this quick?
Yeah, how much more time do I have?
As much time as you want, but I'm asking, I don't mean to, I'm sorry I got involved as I did, but I'm vice chair, it's over my head. But I do with this all the time.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I'm relying on
I
somebody.
I thought this was gonna be pretty simple. It's different, it's not.
Well, we want it to be simple too, because we don't want to make it complicated for us or you, but by the same token, we still got to go by the right way to do it.
So when I put this hypothetical line in here
Yeah.
and sell it, I think I can get away with that because it's a cash deal, not a bank deal. I don't think I could sell
That
it.
doesn't concern the planning board other than your plot line.
John?
Shall we read the procedure for a lot line adjustment?
Perfect.
Sure.
The applicant shall be responsible for payment of the filing fee according to the fee schedule. The applicant shall submit a plat containing all information required for a completed subdivision application, if applicable, for example, the requirement to submit desperate data and application. See all current proposed lot lines of the involved lots must be shown on the plat along with a pertinent survey data. The survey must be certified that all involved lot lines are accurate. Refer to Article 6. The plat must contain, for all involved lots, minimum lot size calculations as required by Article 6. The plat must contain an ownership chart, example included below, containing the tax map and parcel number of each involved lot, printed and signed name of all owners for each involved lot, the before adjustment and after adjustment parcel acreages for each individual lot, the amount of acreage actually being exchanged in acres and square feet. Plat shall contain the following statement: approval of this plat is contingent upon the completion of applicable requirements of the town of Brookfield, land use ordinances and regulations. And G, space shall be reserved on the plat for endorsement by the planning board. So,
But that's lot line adjustment. That's what we were talking about.
That's what we're
I
discussing.
thought we were going to subdivision.
well, you would need, I believe, the subdivision would also require these.
Right, you still have to have the plat and the survey.
That's what we signed. That's what we
Right.
signed to approve, so it can get reported.
So it sounds as though in either case, whether it's a lot line adjustment or a subdivision, you're still gonna need a full survey.
Professional survey.
Can I ask you a question? You guys haven't, I mean, you were gonna go to an attorney to do this, I presume? You just weren't gonna do it on a piece of loose leaf?
Oh, no, I haven't bothered yet because we still got, I figured we had to get your stamp first and then survey and then
We can only give that to you if you apply for a subdivision, because that's not a lot line change, it's subdivision. You're taking one lot, making two. Then you're gonna sell it to the guy with the next one, he's gonna eliminate the lot and make it one continuous piece after he buys it. Unless you wanna make a point.
I don't disagree with you, Gary, but I think we need to have a definition of what the actual square footage and acreage of the lot is before that can happen. And then perhaps in that process, the surveyor can has some recommendations as to, we discussed this in the last meeting, that a professional surveyor undoubtedly has come across this issue in the past. And so their expertise would be beneficial.
this means that I've got to convince the buyer to give me a nice deposit in case he can get the land? Because I can't survey.
I'm not-
here to
we
discuss
can't give you
the
that advice.
business
There's
aspects
no
of
sense
this.
in surveying that land if I'm not gonna do the transaction with Bremer.
That's not our issue.
No,
I think it's already,
Is there a
everything
way-
meets the intent of what our zoning regs say for lot line adjustment or subdivision. If you meet those, then there won't be any issue with Bramer buying that piece of property. It's just that we've got to do
buy
it.
it, he's gotta buy it first. And that bothers me because, something comes up. He's not gonna wanna pay for the survey and then not get the land. And I'm not gonna wanna pay for a survey and not be able to sell
It's not unique, you gotta talk to an attorney, in my opinion.
Yeah, you need
It's
to-
not unique.
You need to go to your attorney and say, a land use attorney, and say, look, we're not gonna do that for you with the town attorney. We're only gonna ask the town attorney if we get involved, if this is legal.
it. Yeah.
But,
Well, I thought attorney came kind of last in the list.
well, you don't know what you're doing with this and how to go about doing it, and we can't give you that advice. All we can do is either give you a subdivision or not give you a subdivision, because you're not applying for a lot line change.
Well, then, the advice you gave me the last meeting,
Mr. Chairman,
George?
I'm sorry, if I could address that issue. So if you look at the minutes that are being applied today, what happened was, yes, at first, the vice chairman at the point said that a lot line adjustment was possible, but then he said, after knowing that, for instance, that there was a boundary for another town, he said that, no, you should go to an attorney. So, I mean, you can see that in the minutes today. They haven't been approved, but, I mean, he did say at first that was a possibility, but then he retracted that more than likely you would have to see an attorney to verify this.
okay, the way I understand it now is if I can sell it, just as it is, right as it is now, get a legal survey line in between there, then I come back here and there's no more whoops.
Do you ever look at our subdivision regulations? You're applying for a subdivision at this point.
After the last meeting, I understood that I could not get a subdivision.
Sure you could. Why not? Why wouldn't you do
Because
it?
there was no,
It's
there was no
It's
road.
not a conforming lot. He doesn't have any road frontage.
Right, but he could
He can
go to
just-
the ZBA.
Huh?
He could
Yeah.
go to
The
ZBA.
ZBA.
Yes, and he can subdivide a piece of property, it just isn't gonna be a building lot.
No building even mentioned.
No, you can't subdivide a property if it's not a buildable lot.
Unless it's a
You
variance.
can't subdivide a property to sell half of it,
No.
even when they're incorporated, since I've been going for a while.
It doesn't define whether you're selling it or not. It just says you can't subdivide a piece of property that is not a buildable lot with the minimum requirements for a buildable lot.
Unless it's a variance.
Unless it's a variance. you have to go to
Which
the
kind of
ZBA.
leaves out subdividing.
Unless you go to the ZBA. And you
Yeah, the
explain to
ZBA
what the
would-
situation is, then
That's just another put off. I want to see if I can move right along.
We can't break our own rules. We can't give you something that we're not capable of doing.
Okay.
I think consulting a professional surveyor would probably be your best bet, because they need to provide the documentation for us to sign off on a lot line adjustment or a subdivision. And what we have here today would not satisfy that requirement for our regulations.
I would suggest you see an attorney first and ask them what you have to do to make this happen legally. They'll give you the answers. We can't do that.
I have the name of a highly recommended real estate attorney. So
Yeah, you don't have to spend the money on
But I thought that was for drawing up the deed, making sure all the right stamps get stamped and taxes get paid. I didn't think that was for getting started.
The complication here is the town boundary, and that the RSA that Tim pointed out, I think it, will make sure that you leave here with that number so that you can reference that with whoever you talk to. But as I'm looking this over, it seems to be talking about an owner of contiguous land located in two separate municipalities. That's not the case, but this might be guidance that an attorney would use to making an opinion. I don't know, but I still think that that's a good reference point for you in taking it to somebody. Either a surveyor, who probably would be very reasonable in having that initial discussion. So that would be my suggestion. We
I'm unarmed.
would like to, well, I can't speak for the board, but, you know, I think that we're trying very hard to help you accomplish your goal but we have the framework within which the board needs to work.
It's just a different way to look at it, I think, it seems to me. I
It
figured,
is a different way.
I figured we'd get the okay to go ahead and do this survey and, you know, set that back line.
An attorney might be able to tell you how to go about doing this to make it work for everybody. That's my point. We can't do that.
Right, like the attorney may, you know, have you create a contract with the other buyer to make sure everything is done properly to safeguard both.
At this point, the buyer could easily back out, and if we subdivide, then we have two parcels that one of them's not buildable. So there's also that we need to make
How
sure.
about imaginary line?
The RSA on that is 674:53, Diane.
Yes.
Can I write that on this? That RSA?
Yeah, I
All right.
have it.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We would love to just make it easy and say, yeah, we'll move the boundary line.
Okay, instead of A, B, C, it's gotta go C, D, V, A.
Because of this situation, it's recommended that you speak to a real estate attorney.
Attorney might say, hey, this is no problem, you got to do this, 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 or this.
Right.
He might, I don't know.
Well, I did go up to Land Tech in Ossipee, and they knew the surveyor that did the previous survey on this. And they know where they can get the maps and all, you know, all that sort of stuff. But they were still talking about 5 figures to do a survey.
Brian Berlin.
Hmm?
It's Brian Berlin, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what's legally required, but you need an attorney to tell you.
Okay, go back and do some more homework. Can I be put on the next month's list?
We can do that.
Okay.
I hope we can have some answers from the attorney as to which you would recommend. You want to talk to Laura too, or?
I'm not really gonna spend any money on it unless there's an application for something.
That's what I was going to ask you, Bill. Thank you. We don't need to.
Hope to have everything in order for next month.
Thank you, Dick. We appreciate it.
Did they call you because I was causing a problem?
Dick, we have a little button under here. We got nervous. So push the button.
We don't need buttons.
I don't have any guns, but I got a grenade.
Be careful, this is, not in this day and age, you don't wanna say.
Night all.
Thank you, Dick.
So thank you very much for your input and finding that RSA as well.
I would just ask, does Dick have, do we have a worksheet?
For subdivision requirements?
Or if somebody comes in and says, I want to do this, can we give them a sheet with the process, or do we have one? I don't know.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, we have one in our book. We can print it out easy enough, right, George?
And you can download that off.
Right
the
off the
internet,
line.
too.
Yeah, I wish it was simple for him, but it's a little bit more complicated because you have someone else involved in it as well, so.
We'll learn a lot from this.
Yes, we will. So, Rich, thank you for your input.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you as well, Gary. We're gonna try to help him out.
I'm back.
All right, correspondence, announcements. We have a copy of convene. It'll be in the common area. And then we have the review and possible approval of the February 15th, 2018 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, in order, in regards to what's being recorded right now, I just want to bring attention to Roman numeral 5E, that's where Vice Chairman Rob Collins made a suggestion that outline would be impossible. However, it says, since the property extends into Wakefield, the only option may be to subdivide the property.
Thank you, George. I do remember that discussion.
I think number 3 in that also is fairly,
Correct.
was our correction in the end.
Yes.
Got a motion to accept the minutes? Diane?
Did we move to discuss them?
We can discuss them. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
On number 11, member comments. I don't have any notes about this, but I don't understand A. Tim, I hope that you know what that means.
Yeah, we discussed having surveys available here in the town hall, whether it be at the table here or elsewhere for people to be able to access them.
So a kiosk of the survey, that's confusing me.
Yep. And a kiosk containing the survey or
Want to clarify it with, I understand what it means, but I think we should clarify it. So the survey should be available at the kiosk, at the office building?
Where's there a kiosk?
well, we just strike kiosk.
So
The
that's
survey be made available in the office building.
Perfect. Is that all, Diane?
Yes, thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
I have to abstain also, because I don't believe I was here.
Motion carries. Thank you. So new business, we don't have any new business at this time.
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Great.
The new books.
Oh, yeah.
I was only able to get, 3 books.
Yeah.
They're $84 a piece at the publisher. Couldn't get an 8 Strachey original. They didn't have it. I might be able to go to all the other planning boards in the state and find one extra one, and which would add up to the 8 we might need. If you'd like me to go to all the other towns in the area, I could. I think Ospey might have one extra one that we can get.
How much does every town get?
Whatever you order.
What do we order?
We technically didn't order any.
much have they cost in the past?
The publisher charges $84. The Office of Strategic Initiatives, formerly known as the Office of Energy and Planning, will order thousands of these books, or hundreds of these books at a time, and the publisher gives them money off. It just didn't happen. Stratford Regional apparently did not get the memo that we needed some, so that order number wasn't put in. So, and I begged the publisher, I said, couldn't you do something? And Office of Strategic Initiatives gave me 3 books. They found them in some closet somewhere. So, now, I question the need for every single one of us to have a book, but I don't know what else we're going to do. We could deal with the 3 books, and I can start calling around to the other 200 and some odd towns in the state to see if somebody has one extra one somewhere.
We also have the documentation of what's changed between last year and this year. So if people want to use it for reference with that documentation of the changes, that would suffice, and then they could just verify with an actual copy.
I mean, listen, I don't think there's any requirement that we have to have a book. I look back into the past to see, how many people actually reference their own personal book. I would assume if we have 3 books out here, we could reference them if we have to, and the statutes are online if we have to.
Okay.
Selectmen get one of their own? Or no? So we got 3 books for 7 people.
We had 3 books. I think they only charged us $6.75. What was it?
I already submitted the
Where was
full
the
amount
mistake?
to the treasurer. I believe the full amount was $12, something like that.
Now, I assumed that Stratford had bought enough books for their planning area, regardless if we're members or not, but that may not have happened that way.
Did you ask?
Yes, it
Is it because we're not a member?
is. I don't believe so. She said, well, we didn't get your order, so we didn't know if you wanted it. And I don't know what happened.
Yeah, if I can add to that, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So what happened was OEP, which was called OEP at the time, they had contacted me by phone, and they basically said, do you want to order these? And I said, yes, because there was a dispute as to whether or not I was the administrative planning board. I told them, I said, I would take full responsibility, please make that happen. About a month afterwards, OEP sent me a document, sent the planning board a document stating that they were no longer offering the service of just accepting it and billing after the fact. They needed to receive the money up front. I did not have the authority to do that, so I approached the planning board, letting them know what the dispute was. So they changed in the middle. That first they accepted it. They said, by my word over the phone, they were going to give us the usual amount, which was 12, I think it was, and they just changed. And they said specifically in the documentation, only for those who are no longer members, they're now requiring payment in full up front. So that's what the dispute is.
Well, I think if I can continue to look around the state, I'm sure someone has an extra book or 2, and I'll just keep doing it until we get. I just don't see why I'm not spending. I would never authorize spending $84 on one of those books, especially with our budget.
I agree with that. So I think we just have 3 books on hand. If we have one, we could probably leave one here. If somebody else needs to be able to access it, we could have one in the office. And then 2 other members could have a copy.
Books online, isn't it?
I'm sure.
You have to pay for that.
Yeah,
Yeah, not free, huh?
nothing's free anymore.
So that's my new
New business.
business.
So is everybody in favor of doing that, having one book for now? Ed will continue to see if we can find other ones through the other towns, and maybe they'll have an extra one. We'll have one in the common area, and then each person will have 2 other books. Go ahead, Gary.
Do we have a thing of changes? They publish the changes.
Yes.
It's in front of the book.
Huh?
It's in the front of the new book.
The new book has
It's in
it.
front of the new.
It's not a
But-
separate, it's not a
but we also-
separate entity.
No,
So we
but
can't print that out and hand it out to the people with old books. Okay.
I think you did that though, didn't you? Didn't you put something together?
Yeah, please don't make me do that again.
It's a tedious task.
It was fun.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
fun to
Ed
was
didn't
fun.
do that in the past. All right,
I'm sure we can find books somewhere.
okay.
I'm sure some planning board somewhere bought one extra book.
Do you have to drive to get it?
Do we have a place we can keep that where? Okay. So that'll be planned forward. If you can work on trying to find another one, we'll have one here.
So we want a total of 12, is that what you want?
I don't think we need 12. No, I mean, we don't have any alternates at this point. So,
7 more?
4 more?
Okay, I'll just get as many as I can find.
Mr. Chairman, if I could suggest that you and the vice chair receive a book each at this point.
For Diane?
My other suggestion is to have office copy do not remove on the one that
Yeah.
stays here.
Leave mine here.
Can you, on the one that we leave here, George, can you put a notation there on the front cover of this copy? Do not remove it.
Now, the best thing to do also, Mr. Chairman, is we have to make sure it doesn't happen again, which means I have to find out, do we contact SRPC
I'll ask.
and see if, you know, we could do it ahead of time, or,
I'll check with them tomorrow.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Ed. Old business, so we got the addresses of the landowners in Brookfield. It took a little bit of work to get it, George. We got it in PDF format. Tried to send it to the people that are doing the mailing, and they refused to accept it because they couldn't work with it in PDF format. There were also potentials for some duplicates on there as well, so George went through it, he converted it into an Excel file, went through, removed all the duplicates, and they now have an Excel copy that they can print out labels and package the survey and get those mailed out. So it did take a little bit of time to get it sent out. But Ed?
how much did it cost? Or how much is it going to cost? Because I wasn't here to hear that.
Well, now we don't have duplicates on there. Can you answer that? The total of the
So,
number?
so they go through an accounting procedure, and they have not contacted me since they received the updated list. And we have from the last meeting that it was not allowed to go above $500 for the printing itself. So I'm going to do it, make every effort I can to make sure that it stays within that. And so far, I have not received an accounting of what that's going to be. And they do know that they're not supposed to proceed until I get a notice of how much it's going to cost first.
Can I ask how many mailings are you talking about here?
Originally, there was, I believe, 488. And I went through the list today, and I removed all redundancy. I don't remember how much I removed. My guess is, off the top of my head, somewhere around 22 were redundant.
Rich?
And that's all property owners.
It's only property owners, that's correct. So some of the property owners that were listed multiple times with their address because they have more than one property in town. That's correct.
So the difficult part is trying to get all residents, because we have renters as well. So we don't have a good way in the town to be able to pull a list to get people that aren't residents here as well. And then if you go to the post office and you get all of the, what they call commercial mailing addresses, it's all 03872, so we'll be sending our survey to everybody in Wakefield as well.
We have a voter list, voter registration list, can we use that?
Diane?
So does this list is this all properties, all lots? Or is it all lots with structures? Because.
All properties.
Well, it's all property owners, because we removed the redundancy, so the issue is not whether or not how many properties there are, but how many property owners there are. And that also means, Mr. Chairman, that some of the property owners do not live in town.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Not really, but I understand.
Is each property get one owner, or what if there's multiple, only one person gets to fill out the?
No.
So there'll be two sent to a particular family or one?
So each person
Husband and
will
wife,
get,
for instance.
they'll get a copy, but there's also directions on the survey that say where the extras are located, and also a link to the website where they can download it as well. So someone could print it, or they can come here, there'll be copies here
Okay.
that they can get. So we're trying to give them multiple ways that they can obtain a copy, but also ways that they can get them back to us. They can email us, they can bring them in by hand, snail mail if they wanted to. Rich, did you have a question?
Just a comment, you might want to check your calendar with Diana. I think she sends out over 500.
So, I mean, I got the numbers directly from her.
From her?
Yes, I did. I showed her how to, because she was unaware of how to send that over. And I specifically asked how many pages that were there, and I counted up the number that was on each page. And I could have miscalculated, but the number I came up with was 488. My recollection at that time.
And you took off about 20, so you got down to about 450.
Yes,
You're
that's
down.
right, that's correct. Because of the redundancies, yes, it's probably around 450.
And you also didn't get the addresses from her, you had to go to the assessor, correct?
No, so I had to go back and forth with the assessor, and what happened was the assessor sent me a document, but what happened was it looked like it was sent to me in C++. It was just unusable, totally unusable. So I went back to the tax collector, and because of what I used to do as the assessor clerk, I came up with an idea of how we could download the list intact as the way she has it, which is for use on the labels themselves, the way she sends it out. So I made a PDF of that, showed how to do that, and that's how I received it.
I know he's been working on it for quite some time, because he's hit a couple of roadblocks, Rich, and then had to go to other people to get the information. So, Ed?
We sent a survey out when we were trying to find out how the town wanted to handle the schoolhouse.
Right, that wasn't the newsletter, though. I believe
It
it
was a
was,
survey.
I think it went in with the newsletter that got sent out to all of the residents in town.
I just figured, why don't we just use the same list?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as, we're making some progress with getting that survey out, and you'll get us some numbers once you get a quote back from Click to Mail, I think it is.
Yes, yes, and again, I'm going by the motion that was set last month, so if it's under $500, I'll have to proceed. But I also will report to the planning board in the following month, everything, concerning the price, et cetera.
Okay.
They're printing and stuffing? They're printing, stuffing, and stamping?
That's
Yep.
correct.
Tim?
Can we start distributing it now?
Sure. We all voted that it's a final copy, so we can put them out.
Yeah, let's have some copies made and
Yeah.
a small sign, and maybe somewhere here in the townhouse that
Can you work on that,
Yes.
George?
Yes,
Thank you.
about what, 10, 20 copies, 30 copies?
Yeah, 20 copies will be fine, and then we'll keep an eye on it. Starts to get down. If we have people waiting in line outside to get a survey, then we'll print a bunch more. And Diane, did you have a comment?
I was just going to suggest that they be available at Town Coffee at the end of the month.
Absolutely. We can do that.
I'm sorry, say again.
Town coffee?
Oh, yes.
we could have some copies in the, it's Meeting House, right? We're gonna do town coffee, so we could have copies over there.
Okay.
Tim?
Just want to follow up, why don't we post something on the town website saying they're available in town hall now, they'll be available at the coffee at the end of the month. And we probably should make Ginny aware that she may be receiving some of these by, hold on to them for us, or put them somewhere for us to be able to start compiling.
Now, the town clerk's office hours are what, Monday and Friday?
Maybe Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday?
Well, that's termination day. What do you want them in by?
Mr. Chairman, last month, that was brought up at the, I don't think it's in the minutes, but it was brought up in the public comments at the end, and it was suggested, quote, as soon as possible. That's all it was talking about.
Right, we didn't put a time frame on it. You got any ideas?
About what termination day? Well, you want them as many can get in to do an analysis.
Right.
But you gotta give people, give them from the date of the mailing. Yeah, a month ought to be pretty good. I mean, if it doesn't come in a month, it's probably never gonna come.
I think you're really the most respondents at the very beginning of when it's put out there with announcements and talk at the town coffee, and here, registering vehicles, and then it's gonna only pretty quick.
Does the town have any functions coming up, like we do things?
The town coffee is the only one I'm aware of.
Then we have the barbecue in the summer and all that. Do we have any winter stuff? Nothing?
I got an email, I haven't looked at it yet, and I can't get it because at any rate. Is there something going on April 11th here in town? Is there something going on?
Maybe a breakfast to clean up.
Maybe Earth Day.
There may be.
Okay.
Or-
That's usually around Earth Day,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah, that was the,
5 days before tax day.
that was the pancake breakfast lunch. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not a bad suggestion, yeah, we could have them available during that, so. George, will you follow up about adding the availability on the town website, that the survey is available in the main office? And follow up with Ginny relating to possibly seeing people drop those off.
I also suggest that we either put a letter to the editor in the paper or a
Right.
small blurb in there. Did you already talk about that?
Yep, it's been done. I don't think it's been mailed in yet, but Dianne drafted something, and I think he did a great job. We made a couple of edits, but nothing major. George got my approval on that, I think, last week. I sent the approval to go ahead and mail that out, or send that out. To be posted.
As a press release?
Yes.
You need to make sure that it's really clear that it's a press release.
Okay.
They seem to be just printing them verbatim, because they don't come up with their own news. Sorry, one more thing. Where are we going to suggest that people drop them off here? Do we have like a collection box?
So there'll be, we had discussed having town clerk receive them. He'll be getting them by email as well.
Okay.
I guess we could put a box together where people could drop them, but
I just don't remember, was it in the instructions? Or
Yes.
to leave it with the town clerk?
to hand deliver it to the town office.
Okay.
Isn't there a
Mail
mail
it.
slot out in front so people can just slip mail in?
Yes.
That would work too. I think we left it generic and said it could be dropped off at the town hall. Any further discussion on survey mailing?
So it's going out.
Yes, the addresses and the survey is at the company that's going to be doing the stuffing of the envelopes and the mailing. Furthermore, in old business, I wanted to also discuss the earlier news we got from George about him planning to move on, and I don't want to let that be forgotten. I would like to put another posting in the paper, see if we get any feedback on that. So, and if anybody has anyone that they know of that would be interested in an alternate or administrative assistant position, they could pass them on. And I think you and I had agreed to sit down with somebody who was interested and meet with them together earlier on. Deer in the headlights.
I really don't recall who that would be.
When it happens.
When it happens.
Oh, when?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
After the meeting, they'll be arriving.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you're.
No, we would meet.
Okay, public comments? We don't have any public? Oh,
My understanding that they're starting the permitting process for the first cell tower for this safety network
okay.
in Middleton now.
That's mutual aid?
You sure it was mutual aid?
It's the federal network that AT&T's prime contractor on. The soon as just signed about 4 months ago. It was, I think it was, we got the question on.
Last summer, we discussed it.
Yeah. Well, there's some activity in Middleton.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. And then any member comments? I'd like to make a comment, and Gary, thank you for coming back to the board. Glad to have you on. Tim, congratulations.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Diane, congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other member comments? And I want to say one, thank you all very much for nominating me as chair again for another year. Appreciate it.
It was easy.
Appreciate it.
Let's have another public comment.
Yes, Rich?
Any thoughts on what your objectives are for the coming year, what you want to accomplish?
Master plan.
That's it?
Well,
That's a big
I
one.
mean, you got hope, there's loaning opportunities too, right?
that's a huge one.
Right.
But yeah, depending on what we get back for the survey results, that'll be,
The point I made when you were here, Gary, is our cell tower zoning is so restrictive, you can't get cell towers in town, and yet everybody doesn't have coverage. So we've effectively excluded some people from coverage because of our zoning.
That was Ron Murray in 1999.
Well, it's still in effect in 2000 and whatever.
before the.
What do we want to do?
Well, that's what I asked.
Right.
That's exactly what do we want to do? Do we want to do we want to let coverage come in with cell towers?
They make them like pine trees now, only they look a little silly because it's 5 times higher than the rest of the canopy.
My
But,
point was, maybe the town wants to discuss it.
Right.
you know, I always thought that was kind of a dead horse. I mean, Ron was saying, I don't want to see a cell tower, that was his thing, but he lived down on Kingswood Lake, and, you know, if the cell tower were, let's say, 200 feet in the woods, he would never see it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I didn't fight it, and I don't
Well, the technology's changing such that next generation cell towers
lower.
will have better bandwidth than cable.
Right.
Speed will be better than cable, so that's where the technology's going.
And then you could probably do your internet and everything.
Well, you won't have cable anymore, that's why they're not.
It's a good thing.
And our zoning is pretty restricted with respect to cell
We'll
towers.
see what the survey people say.
Yep.
Would be a good idea that, I always thought that information is the best, who's that? The clothing store said, an educated consumer is our best customer. Asking a question like that is kind of ambiguous. People don't understand the nature of the cell tower that you just explained to me. In other words, do we want cell towers? Off the cuff, people would say, "No, I want one under my house." But if they if they came to the conclusion that it's better than cable, they might have a different opinion. It's educating people about that might be something to consider. I don't know.
Cable could go the way of Fairpoint, with Verizon, right? There's no money in it.
Well, there's plenty of money in selling bandwidth over the air, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's pretty expensive.
I'd like to address that once we get the survey, and I'm interested to see what the townspeople, how the feel of the town will be, if it remains the same as it's been, or if people are wanting change. It'll be interesting. And then, of course, we'll have more zoning to discuss before next March.
Did you say Milton or Middleton?
Middleton.
Middleton.
Whatever you know.
Diane?
So has there been any inquiries either to the planning board or to the board of selectmen regarding siting cell towers?
Nothing that wasn't generic. So we've received a letter late summer, I want to say, asking us where we stood with regards to telecommunications. And I think they were kind of putting the fingers out to say, can we put one in Brookfield?
Did we send them a copy of our zoning? I think we did.
Yeah.
I can't remember the year, but it was a proposal to turn the bell tower into a cell tower on the next door on the building. There really was.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, they can hide cell antennas like anywhere at this point. And if they don't remove the bell and stick towers up there, then maybe that's a...
Well, they were gonna stick something up on top of it that was gonna be ornate. I don't know. It was a proposal.
Any other member comments? All right, meeting adjourned.